got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. I got killer beats, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA.
Hello and welcome back, guys. We're now starting a new story, Shapeshifting Hero, Myth, written by JamesGrover. You can find author's profile link in the description. Let's begin. Shape-shifting forms more will be added as the story goes along. I do not own any of the pictures in the story. Fire Elemental is 5 feet just like Isuku, Ice Elemental is 5 feet just like Isuku, Werewolf is 9 feet, Werewolf armored form. Minus the metal claw weapons on the hands. Unicorn is 7 feet, Baby Unicorn is 1.5 foot, Giant Cyclopes is 30 to 167 feet, regular size is 15 feet, Izuku can only alter the size of the Cyclopes, Arion the Immortal Horse, is 7 feet. Unipeg, is 7 feet, Dryad, weapons included, is 4 feet, Golem, is 10 feet, yes I know this is Ivan's akumatized self from MLB, Griffin not Griffin. A Griffin, is a legendary creature with the head, talons, and wings of an eagle, and the body of a lion. Griffin is just bigger than a regular lion. Is 9 feet. The wings on his back in Chapter 18 dragon form is only used once for the fight against Overhaul. Is the same size as Overhaul's monster form. Shape-shifting Hero, Myth AN, I do not own MHA. This story will be in third person or reader's perspective. We see a 4-year-old Izuku wearing a pink onesie that he loves, running to his mother's room acting like it's Christmas even though it's the middle of summer. Mommy, Mommy wake up. Izuku cheered excitedly. I'm up, I'm up. What is it? Inko asked groggily. When are we going to the doctor's today? Asked with excitement a child wouldn't usually express about going to the doctor's office. I don't know, are you sick? Inko asked teasingly. Izuku started to cry thinking his mother forgot his birthday, though she'd never do that. Oh, I'm sorry sweetie. No, I didn't forget, and we're heading in at around 10 so we have plenty time, so go get dressed, while I make breakfast. Okay. Inko said soothingly. Okay. Izuku responded with the cheer back on his face and in his voice. Time skipped to doctor's office after tests. Well, it seems little Izuku here has a quirk. The doctor announced. Alright, what is it? Inko asked curiously. It's shape-shifting. Now this quirk is an interesting one. It seems that while the amount of forms he can shape-shift into aren't limited, excluding things like other people or inanimate objects. Like for example, he could turn into a mosquito, or he could turn into the abominable snowman. He can also do partial shifts. The doctor explained. However, these transformations burn up quite a bit of stamina, so until he's a couple years older he shouldn't overdo it. Oh wow, that's a strong quirk. You hear that, Izuku? You can be a hero. Inko cheered. Izuku upon hearing those words broke out into a broad grin, and he held his arm up like All Might when he's doing his victory pose. Time skipped to home. As soon as they got home Izuku ran to his room and started practicing his quirk even though the doctor said to wait until he had more stamina. He started by trying turn his hand into a hoof. After a few tries he got it, but he couldn't maintain it more than a few seconds. He kept trying till Inko called him for supper. When he went down he saw Katsudon. He ran over to the table and waited for his mom to be ready to eat before he dug in. After supper he decided to help his mom with the dishes before heading back up to his room. Mama's little helper, aren't you? Inko teased. I love you, mommy. Izuku responded with adoration in his voice. When he got back to his room he continued training but upped it to just beyond his wrist. He did this until he passed out from exhaustion. Izuku's room is only half filled with All Might merch, the other half is filled with homemade Eraserhead merch since he's a new underground hero, so not enough people know about him to make a profit, so they don't make merch about him. Now while they aren't professional level they are still excellent for a 4-year-old. When he woke up he got dressed in his favorite pink shirt and headed downstairs to eat breakfast with his mom before she had to drop him off at school and head to work. After breakfast he once again helped his mom with the dishes, which he has been doing since he could remember. With the dishes done they headed to school, then Inko headed off to work. When recess finally rolled around, everybody went outside and was about to head off to do whatever they normally do until Bakugo said something interesting. "Hey Izuku, didn't you go get your quirk checked out yesterday?" Bakugo asked with something unknown in his voice. "Yes Kaken, I did." Izuku exclaimed. His announcement drew everybody back to center of the playground where Izuku and Bakugo were. "Well, let's see it," Bakugo demanded. Izuku then turned his hand up to half his forearm into that of what to him was a unicorn, but to everybody else it was that of a horse. "Useless, just like you. I know we should call you defenseless Izumi, since you're so girly," Bakugo said with malice. After he said that, he shoved Izuku to the ground only for all the girls of the class to get in his way. They, unknowingly, made it worse for Izuku since Bakugo wanted everyone to fall in line and praise him. "This isn't over, Bakugo shouted in anger. And with that began Izuku's life of torment, borderline torture. Time skipped 2 years later. Izuku is waiting for his mom to pick him up when Bakugo and his gang grabbed him and dragged him to the nearest alley, but unbeknownst to them a certain hero that's only been on the job for 2 years spotted the look of terror in Izuku's eyes. Eraserhead walked to the alley, and his first thought upon seeing all 3 boys beating on Izuku was, "I shoulda run." Eraserhead thought, chastising himself. That's when he noticed Bakugo using his quirk on Izuku. When Bakugo went for the second round on Izuku, his quirk didn't activate, making him think Izuku did something to him. "What did you do to my quirk, Bakugo shouted in anger with a growl in his voice. Izuku knew immediately who stopped Bakugo's quirk, especially when the grayish-white cloth wrapped up all 3 of his attackers, but he didn't say anything. Eraserhead walked over and picked up Izuku, who flinched at the contact but didn't fight back. Eraserhead walked out of the alley and over to the school, passing by a very worried Inko, and a very annoyed Mitsuki. When Inko and Mitsuki saw a beaten-up Izuku being carried by a man towards the school, they immediately followed him. When he entered the school's main office, he asked the receptionist if the school nurse was still here, causing her to look up and see the state of Izuku and gasp before jumping up and leading him to the nurse's office with Inko and Mitsuki following. After setting Izuku on the cot in the nurse's office, he headed back towards the main office, still dragging all 3 with him. "Old hag, get this dude off of me," Bakugo ordered. After hearing this, Mitsuki looked up and spotted her son being dragged away and followed. When they reached the main office, Eraserhead headed straight for the door labeled Principal's office and knocked. After hearing a "come in," he opened the door, dragging the 3 boys in and Mitsuki following. "Why do you have 3 of my students tied up?" the principal asked, confused. "I found these 3 beating on a student I already dropped off at the nurse's office," Eraserhead explained. "Alright, I'll call those 2's parents, as the 3rd's mother is already behind you," the principal said before pointing at the upset Mitsuki. After the other 2's parents showed up, the principal called in their teacher, cause she had already said that these 3 had been reported for bullying another student but didn't say which one. It came to the final conclusion that they'd be suspended for a week and the at-home punishment would be left up to the parents. After this incident, Eraserhead often stopped over to check up on Izuku and actually got him to trust him and started him on working out, so he was strong enough to start learning the basics of a couple fighting styles. As Eraserhead was working with Izuku, him and Inko started getting closer and went on a couple dates, then decided to put a label on their relationship and see where it goes from there. Time skipped 2 years later. Again we see Izuku on the playground in the sandbox alone, practicing his quirk. He's now able to hold his entire arm in a partial shift no problem. He's also got some muscle thanks to the training regimen Aizawa, or Dad as Izuku calls him now, started him on. Both Izuku and Inko switched their names to Aizawa, as Midoriya was Inko's maiden name. Izuku was practicing shifting his ears into an animal's, and after he succeeded in making his ears shift into cat ears on top of his head, he heard a girl crying and Bakugo and his gang's laughter. He got up and charged in that direction, only to see a girl with onyx eyes and long black hair on the ground crying while Bakugo is laughing at and insulting her and her quirk. Something in Izuku snapped and he shifted his nose into a rhino's horn and charged at Bakugo, effectively shoving him away from the girl. Oh, look at this, the precious Demi actually fighting back for once. Bakugo taunted before his voice turned to anger. I guess it's time to teach him what happens when he fights back. Just before Bakugo can throw his first attack, Izuku regains his normal ears and nose and shifts both his arms up to the elbows into hippo arms for more protection, while putting them up into an X to block their attacks. After a while, Bakugo and his gang got bored as they couldn't seem to hurt Izuku and Izuku wasn't fighting back. But before they left, Bakugo got a cheap shot on Izuku's stomach, leaving him on the ground holding his stomach. That's what you get for standing against me, Demi. Bakugo shouted over his shoulder, clearly proud of what he did to Izuku. After Bakugo walked off, the girl came out from behind the tree she hid behind and ran over to Izuku, who was still holding his stomach. When she reached him, tears started streaming down her face, and when the first one landed on Izuku's now human arm, he immediately forgot about the pain in his stomach, focusing on the crying girl. Are you okay? You're not hurt anywhere, are you? Izuku asked, worried about the girl. No, but you are. The girl responded. As long as you are fine, then I am fine. Izuku said soothingly. I'm Momo Yaoyorozu, what's your name? Momo introduced. Izuku Aizawa, what's your quirk? Izuku introduced before asking. After Izuku said that, Momo looked nervous. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. Izuku said, worried. My quirk is creation. I can create any non-living object with my lipids as long as I know what it's made of. Momo answered cautiously. Your quirk is so cool, honestly perfect for hero work. Izuku declared excitedly. Think about it, you need something to defeat the villain and boom, you got it. You need a tool to rescue a trapped civilian and boom, you got it. You need a first aid kit for an injured civilian and boom, you got it. Izuku exclaimed with even greater excitement the longer he talked. Mine is shapeshifting. I can shapeshift into anything other than people or plants or objects. Nobody other than my parents have told me I could become a hero, thank you. Momo said with tears of joy in her eyes. Momo, it's time to go. Mrs. Yaoyorozu called. I hope to see you again. Momo said, waving goodbye. I do too, I will see you at UA, won't I? Izuku asked. You will. Momo declared. With that, Momo headed over to her mom, who said something that made Momo blush and wave her arms around. Izuku then headed home, where he sees his mom just starting dinner, so he heads over to help her like usual. After they eat dinner, Izuku helps wash the dishes and starts the laundry, then heads up to his room to continue working on his quirk training. Time skipped to the day of the Sludge villain incident. As time went on, after all the boys hit PBRTY, they all started bullying and attacking Izuku cause he took all the girls from them, so he now is terrified of any male unless he's fighting. That's a completely different story. He has almost no fear when fighting. The only reason that he has any fear is because he's scared of someone getting hurt because he screws up. He has also gained the habit of staying shifted into a baby black unicorn at home ever since he was able to do a full shift. The teacher walks in with a stack of papers in his hands. I know I'm supposed to hand these career aptitude tests, but I know you all want to be heroes. The teacher announced. After he said that, he threw the papers in the air with all but Bakugo and Izuku showing off their quirks. Settle down, you know it's against the rules to use quirks on school grounds. Now it seems Bakugo is going to UA. The teacher said like it was a grand announcement, like Bakugo had already gotten in. As he said this, probably to feed his favorite student's ego, people were talking about how hard it is to get into UA. Then Bakugo goes on about how awesome he thinks he is. Then the teacher smirks and looks at Izuku. It seems like Aizawa is too. The teacher said with a nasty smirk on his face. You DMN Demi, I thought I told you not to apply to UA. Bakugo shouted in a rage. As he yelled that, he tried to get close enough to launch an explosion, but the girls of the class got in his way, preventing that from happening. The teacher then tells everyone to get back to their seats. What the girls didn't know was that they were just making it worse for Izuku, and he didn't have the heart to tell them. As Izuku is walking home from school, taking the long way to avoid the guys from his class, he enters under a tunnel only for a slime dude to attack him talking about how he's the perfect cover. Izuku dodges several times before he trips over something and the sludge villain catches him. So he decides to use his quirk and turns into a fire elemental. He spits Izuku out to get away from him before he evaporates. Ouch, DMN, that's hot. The sludge villain says in pain. Izuku transforms back into his human form just as All Might bursts through the manhole that the villain had come from and one punches it. Then he notices Izuku and sees the terrified expression on his face and tries to slowly approach him only for Izuku to look even more scared and take off running towards his house. All Might in too much shock doesn't go after him till he's already lost sight of him, so he turns around and scoops up the villain into 2 empty bottles and puts them in his cargo briefs but forgets to button them up. So when he jumps away to the police station, the bottles fall out. Izuku on his way home hears an explosion and decides to investigate. When he finally gets to the site of the explosion, he sees someone he thought he wouldn't see for another 10 months, but she's in danger again. When he sees that the pros aren't doing anything, he charges in, throwing his backpack and hitting the sludge villain in the eye, getting Momo to be able to breathe and get a hand out, and Izuku continues charging in, shifting into a werewolf in front of everyone. He grabs Momo's hand and pulls her out of the sludge villain before punching it to pieces, though not killing it. The air pressure from the punch put out the fire and condensing and dispersing some of the clouds, making it rain. Then he sets Momo down and shifts back into human form. "Hey Momo, how you been?" Izuku greets, trying to keep her calm. "How do you know my name?" Momo asked, confused. "Let me give you a hint," Izuku said. Izuku then puts cat ears on his head and a rhino horn for his nose, before taking them off. "OMG Izuku!" Momo shouted excitedly. Momo jumps at Izuku only to realize she's taller than him by about 8 inches. But to her it only makes him that much more adorable. She notices him start to shake in fear when the pro heroes start to come closer, so she puts him behind her and away from the heroes. They seem to get the message from her glare and back off, letting them leave. Izuku walks her home so they can catch up. "Why were you afraid when they started coming towards us?" Momo asked sternly. "Every boy except my dad, well, stepdad, beats on me every chance they get," Izuku answered tearfully, knowing that there was no way around it. Izuku had started crying when she asked that, as he has gotten a collection of scars over the years from the constant attacks portrayed by his peers, some instigated by his teachers. Different teachers than preschool, and Izuku's clothes, and whatever non-living thing is on him like a backpack, shifts with him so he doesn't rip them. Momo, seeing his tears as she was looking at him in shock, quickly pulls him into a hug. After a while she breaks the hug and they continue on their way towards the Yaoyorozu mansion. After they get there and say their goodbyes, Izuku starts running to his house so he can get there in time to help his mom with dinner. When he walks through the door, he's met by his mom tackling him in a hug, crying. She keeps looking him over for any injuries even when she sees none. "Mom, I'm fine. Now what are we cooking tonight?" Izuku said, struggling to breathe in the tight hug. Izuku woke up this morning and decided he was gonna go to Dagoba Municipal Beach and clean it to help out the community. Izuku told his mother and she decided to hire a truck and driver to help him out. When Izuku arrived to the beach dumping spot, he immediately started moving the small stuff up to the parking lot. For about 3 hours Izuku worked without taking a break, and the truck finally arrived, seeing the small mountain of garbage already in the parking lot. The driver sees Izuku carrying another load of garbage up the steps and she seems to understand why the truck was hired. When Izuku sees the truck, he places his load on the pile and heads up to the driver. The truck is at the top. Are you the person my mom hired to drive the garbage to the proper dump location?" Izuku asked politely. "I am." The driver responds. "Well then, thank you for your time, miss." Izuku trails off, not knowing her name. "Emi Fukukado, but call me Emi." "And you are?" Ms. Joke introduces herself. "I'm Izuku Aizawa. It's nice to meet you, Ms. Joke, and before you freak out, I only know 'cause Dad talks about you." Izuku rambles. "So Eraserhead talks about me?" Ms. Joke asks curiously. What does he say? Yeah, he talks about how your jokes are actually funny but how he has to keep up the grumpy facade around others. Izuku says without thinking. When Izuku realized what he said, he slaps his hand over his mouth. Oh no. I wasn't supposed to tell anyone that. Izuku says, hand still over his mouth. Ms. Joke bursts out laughing and eventually Izuku joins in. When they finally stop, Izuku asks if he can start loading the garbage into the truck, and Ms. Joke decides to help him. As the months went by, Izuku and Ms. Joke, or as he decided to call her, with her permission, Aunt Emmy cleaned the entire beach, upping Izuku's strength and everything. Whenever a news crew would try and catch the boy who people are taking pictures and small videos of him helping Ms. Joke, he would shift into an ant and climb on Emmy's shoe and wait for them to leave. Luckily nobody but Aizawa caught on, and he had a real laugh at the disappointed faces on the press when they never got the scoop. They finished cleaning the beach about a month and a half early, so Izuku asked Aizawa something. Hey Dad. Izuku inquired. Yes bud. Mr. Aizawa responded curiously. Can you teach me how to use a capture scarf? Asked, giving the puppy dog eyes. Sure, although it takes more than a month and a half to learn. Mr. Aizawa says. By the way, what am I gonna call you in school? Izuku asks. Confident are we? And if you get in, during school hours you will call me Mr. Aizawa. He responds. Thanks Dad. Izuku says before heading to his room for the night. So, for the remaining time until the entrance exam, Eraserhead and Izuku were out in a clearing in the woods with Eraserhead teaching him how to use the capture scarf, and against Eraserhead's statement Izuku learned how to use the capture weapon in a month and spent the rest of the time perfecting his own technique and improving his skill, all while keeping up with his regular training and quirk training. It's now the day of the entrance exam. Mr. Aizawa offered Izuku his first ever recommendation, but Izuku denied, saying he wanted to earn his place in UA and not be handed it. This made a rare proud smile show on his face. Izuku arrives at UA and looks up in awe. He trips on the pavement, but before he hits the ground he starts to float. Sorry for using my quirk on you without permission. Nice scarf by the way. A girl says with a bright smile. Thank you. I'm Izuku Aizawa by the way, and no need to be sorry. Izuku reassures. I'm Ochako Uraraka. She introduces herself. After that they both went in to take the exam. They sat next to each other in the auditorium. Midnight came in and said that they had 2 hours for the test in front of them. About 10 minutes later Izuku walks up to Midnight to hand in his test. Are you quitting or are you finished? Midnight asked, surprised. I'm finished. The test was really easy, although there were a couple errors in the questioning, though they looked purposefully placed. Izuku replied with a smile. Well, alright then, proceed to the next auditorium and wait till the others are finished. Midnight said, surprise still evident on her face. Thank you. Izuku said with an even brighter smile. With that said, Izuku headed to the auditorium and sat in the far back corner and pulled his book about mythological fantasy creatures out of wherever Nizu gets his tea, and started reading. He was so absorbed in learning about the new creatures in the book that he didn't notice the room start to fill with people. That is, until present Mike started screaming about the practical exam, making Izuku drop his book in his lap out of fear. When he realized that nobody was near him, he relaxed, picked up his book and put it back where he got it from, then paid attention to what PM was saying, although he already knew about the practical since he read the handout before even coming to the exam. At his exam city, Izuku spotted Uraraka about to have a meltdown, so he started to head over to her when he dodged a hand and kept moving. Calm down, you got this. Izuku said reassuringly. Thank you. Uraraka said after steadying her breathing. The blue-haired boy that tried to stop Izuku started harshly berating himself for his foolish assumption. When the doors opened, Izuku immediately shifted into his werewolf form and took off into the city, leaving a group of people laughing at him until PM asked them what they were doing and told them that there are no countdowns in real life. After 7 minutes, Izuku had tied AM score and decided to leave some robots for the others, and took a page out of his dad's book and took a nap, or that's what he was going to do until the ground started shaking. He went to see what it was only to see the 0-pointer. He was about to follow the other students till he heard a cry for help. Izuku turned back around and spotted Uraraka trapped under some rubble from a building. Izuku then turned into a giant cyclopes the size of the 0-pointer and easily reached over and ripped its head off, leaving the robot standing stable so it wouldn't fall and hurt anyone. He then set the head on top of a random building and shifted into his werewolf form and got the rubble off of Uraraka. He then went back to human form. "Can you walk?" Izuku asked worriedly. "No, I think my ankle is broken," said with a pained expression. "Climb on after I'm done," Izuku instructed. Izuku then shifted into a black unicorn, then crouched low enough for Uraraka to climb on. When she got on and got stable, Izuku started walking towards the gate. When he got to the gate where the examinees were all huddled up terrified, they heard his hooves on the pavement and looked towards him and Uraraka in awe. They also parted like the Red Sea for Moses so he could walk through and get to Recovery Girl so she could heal Uraraka. After she kissed Uraraka's ankle, she told her goodnight and asked Izuku to take her to the infirmary. After Izuku got done setting Uraraka on a bed in the infirmary, he shifted back to human form and headed to the observation room. "Dad, I'm ready to go when you are," Izuku said. "Sure, let's go," Mr. Aizawa said, getting up. Half the teachers passed out from shock when Aizawa responded, including Midnight. "Shape-shifting hero, myth. It's been a week since the entrance exams and there has been no word." Izuku is starting to get scared but puts on a brave face so he doesn't worry his mom. All of a sudden Inko starts screaming for Izuku that his letter has arrived. Izuku rushes out of his room to where Inko is in the living room with his letter. He decides to open the letter with his mom. When he opens the envelope, a small metal disc fell onto the coffee table. Izuku picked up the disc and realized it was a hologram projector, so he put it back on the table and pressed the button to start the message. "Hello Mr. Midoriya, normally your homeroom teacher would be the one to tell you your results, but this year we had All Might do them, though I am doing yours for 2 reasons. 1. Mr. Aizawa has informed me 1 year past and the resulting difficulties caused by it, and 2, because while you finished a test that would take 3rd years at least 40 minutes to finish, you only took 10 even with spotting the purposefully hidden errors, and noticed that they were purposely hidden. So I would like you to come to my office when you arrive on Monday." The hologram of Nizu said in his cheerful voice. "Now as for the practical exam. You tied All Might's record with your villain points alone, yet we were also counting points from a hidden category. So when we added your rescue points onto your villain points, you far surpassed All Might's record, therefore setting a high bar for yourself. Though the only person doubting that you'll live up to our expectations is All Might himself, though I think it's more about his record was broken than anything. Welcome to your hero academia." Nizu cheered. "You did it, Izuku. I'm so proud of you." Inko cheered, very delighted that her son can achieve his dream. "Thank you, I love you Mom," Izuku said with his bright smile. "Wait a minute, did he say you broke All Might's record?" Inko said upon processing the rest of what was said. "I think he did, though I was more paying attention to the fact that I actually passed," Izuku said, clearly still a bit dazed with excitement. "Well, I'm making katsudon to celebrate," Inko declared, joy filling the house. "Let me help you," Izuku said, about to get up. "What class are you in?" Inko asked curiously. "He's in my class. Also all staff have been informed of your fear and as such all male members have been persuaded, more like threatened, by Nizu to keep a decent distance to prevent panic attacks and such," Aizawa said, entering the house. "Nizu has also started construction on a separate changing room for you, but it won't be done till the day after tomorrow." Time skip. We see Izuku arrive at UA early for his meeting with Nizu and start looking for the main office. After a while of searching, Izuku finally arrives, yet it is at least a half an hour till school starts. He knocks on the door and waits till he hears a soft, "Come in," from the other side. "Ah Izuku, welcome. I wanted to see you after hearing about your time and grading your test form from the entrance exam, and I would like you to take this test. You have 1 hour, so it's good you arrived earlier than anticipated. Nizu said after Izuku took his seat. Izuku just nods his head and takes the test while sitting at the coffee table. He takes a little bit longer on this test than the entrance exam because he wanted to double-check his answers. So he handed the test back to Nizu only 15 minutes after receiving it. This will take about 30 minutes to calculate your score, so why don't we play a round of chess or two? Nizu offered, wanting to see if Izuku could compete with him. Sure, it would be an honor to compete in a match against the smartest mind on the planet. Izuku said, sitting at the chess table. Nizu hopped off his chair and headed over to the small chess table already set up on the side of his office. The first round took a total of 10 minutes with Nizu coming out on top. And since there was plenty of time, they set up for round 2. This match took 20 minutes, and when Nizu thought he finally had Izuku cornered, Izuku flipped the table, metaphorically, and put Nizu in checkmate. The machine calculating Izuku's test finally beeped off just as Izuku said, checkmate, so Nizu put the fact that, for the first time ever, he lost at a strategy game at the back of his mind, though he was still internally raging and finding out he is a very sore loser, and went to review the score only to have his jaw drop. Principal Nizu, is everything alright? Izuku asked worriedly. Yes, although from now on you shall call me Uncle Nizu, my intellectual equal. It appears that both you and I share an IQ score of, Nizu said with a mischievous glint in his eyes. Oh, don't tell Dad or he might try and ban you from seeing me, to prevent me becoming a Nizu Zero, as her would call it. Izuku warned jokingly. True. In that case it shall be our little secret, although you shall still refer to me Uncle Nizu. Nizu insisted. Yes, Uncle Nizu. Izuku said, much to Nizu's delight. Now head over to the changing rooms and head out to the field where your class is. And take this PE uniform with you. Nizu said, handing the uniform to Izuku. Bye, Uncle Nizu. Izuku said, waving before heading off. With that, Izuku headed towards the changing rooms he spotted on his way to the office. After getting changed, Izuku headed out to the field just after everybody else. When he got there, he decided to wake his dad up, so he picked up a stick that was laying on the ground and poked the yellow caterpillar on the ground. No, don't do that. He could hurt you. Momo called out fearfully. Mr. Aizawa won't hurt me. Izuku said calmly with a smile. DMN problem child. Alright everybody listen up, today we're doing a quirk apprehension test. Aizawa started only to get interrupted. But what about orientation and introductions? Uraraka said confused. There is no need for such useless ceremonies. Now first place please step forward. Aizawa said, slightly agitated. Bakugo stepped forward looking as cocky as ever. I said first place, not second. Aizawa said plainly, but you could see the joy in his eyes. Bakugo faltered in his step with a stunned look on his face before it quickly morphed into anger. Which one of you useless extras dared to score higher than me? Bakugo shouted enraged, nearly foaming at the mouth. Shut up or I'll expel you. Aizawa threatened. Now Izuku, please come up here. Izuku stepped forward, nervous and timid, making people doubt that he got first. Step into the circle and get this ball as far as possible. Anything goes as long as you stay in the circle. Aizawa instructed. Izuku walked into circle and shifted into his werewolf form and caught the ball as Aizawa threw it to him, careful not to crush it. He reared his arm back and into a professional pitcher's stance and threw the ball as hard as he could, but ran fast enough to get in front of the students and his dad to block them from being blown away. The wind was enough that it damaged the trees, making Izuku feel bad, so he shifted into a dryad to use nature magic to heal the trees. The girls all awed at the now 4-foot-tall dryad Izuku, making him blush in a shade of green. This looks like so much fun. Ashido cheered, causing a shiver to run up Izuku's spine from when he called training with his dad fun. Then let's make this even more fun, the person in last place gets expelled. Aizawa said with his signature smirk. That's not fair. Uraraka shouted, pouting like a child. Neither is life, now get on with it. Aizawa said, not caring for her outburst. 50-meter dash. Izuku shifted into Arion, the immortal horse from Greek mythology, frying the machine that was trying to calculate his speed. Grip test. He shifted into his werewolf form and broke the machine. Standing long jump. He shifted into a unipeg, flying over the sandbox. Repeated side steps he did as a regular human to conserve stamina. Seated toe touch he did as human and managed to stretch over his toes. Sit-ups he did as human and was told to stop. Distance run. He shifted into his unicorn and ran till he was told to stop. I can't be bothered to tell your individual score, so look at the board. Aizawa said tiredly. Izuku, Aizawa, Momo, Yaoyorozu, Shoto, Todoroki, Katsuki, Bakugo, Tenya, Ida, Minoru, Mineta was bawling his eyes out, laying on the ground. The expulsion was a lie. Aizawa said cheekily with his smirk plastered on his face and the sight of Mineta bawling his eyes out. What? Everyone but Izuku and Momo screamed. Izuku then hid behind Momo, who he was standing beside. I thought everyone knew, should I have told you? Momo asked, unsure. Yes. Everyone but Izuku screamed at her. Actually, Momo, he wasn't lying. If he saw someone he thought had no potential, he would have expelled them. Just like his class last year. Izuku whispered in her ear, both from fright and not wanting to embarrass her. Alright, everyone go get changed back into your regular uniforms. Izuku, hang back a minute. Aizawa said, dismissing everyone. As they all head off to the locker rooms, Izuku walks over to Aizawa. What did you need, Mr. Aizawa? That still feels weird. Izuku asked politely. Yes, it does, but I'm just giving you an excuse to wait until they are all done. Aizawa explained with a gentle smile on his face. Thank you, but they should be done by now, or at least by the time I get there. Izuku said, getting a nod from Aizawa. With that, Izuku headed off to the now empty locker room, changed, and headed to class, where he found his seat at the back corner of the class with Momo's seat beside him and Jiro's seat in front of him. I suggest we do introductions. Well, start with desk 1. Ida said. My name's Katsuki Bakugo and I'm leagues above all you extras, so don't get in my way. Got it. Bakugo said cockily and prideful. Skipping to Izuku, hi, my name's Izuku Aizawa. I like the color pink and unicorns. Izuku introduced himself shyly. Aw. All the girls cooed while Mineta cursed him silently. What's your connection to Yamamoto? I heard you call her by her given name. Jiro asked, jealousy slipping into her voice, but that went unnoticed by both Izuku and Momo. He saved me from a bully when we were 8, and then again saved me from that Sludge villain 10 months ago. Momo answered calmly. That was the first time I ever hit someone. The second time was the Sludge villain. Izuku said, remembering both of those times. Oh wow, ain't that romantic, a boy who only fights when the girl of his dreams is in danger. Ashido said with a fake swoon. Ashido's statement causes both of them to blush like crazy. I don't have any feelings like that for him. Momo said embarrassingly. I don't for her either. Izuku whispered but was heard by all. So what you're saying is that you're still on the market? Ashido asked flirtatiously. What does that mean? Izuku asked, very confused. As Ashido goes to answer, all the girls except Momo leaps and put their hands over her mouth, preventing her from speaking. No ruining the cinnamon roll. All girls but Ashido whispered. Ashido does the only thing she can, which is raise her hands in surrender. I still don't understand what she meant. Izuku stated, still very confused. You don't need to Izu. Momo said in a maternal tone. Izu? Izuku asked, slightly startled. Just a nickname. Momo answered innocently. Wait, Aizawa. Are you Mr. Aizawa's secret love child? Todoroki asked, pulling a notebook out of nowhere. Alright, everybody get out of here and go home. Aizawa ordered. But I need answers. Todoroki demanded. He's not a secret love child, but he is my child, BLD or not. Now get out of here. Aizawa said with hidden emotions that weren't picked up by anyone but Izuku, who smiled at him. We see Izuku in class waiting for the next lesson when all of a sudden the door flies open and in comes All Might in a weird pose. I am coming through the door like a normal person. All Might shouted, bursting through the door. The class, minus Izuku, who turned himself into a fruit fly on reflex, shouted in surprise and awe. I heard there were 20 of you, yet I only count 19. All Might said questioningly. Izuku, who had turned back, was hiding behind Hagakure, weirdly successfully. Don't worry, we're all here. You just spooked one of us. Momo reassured. Sorry, anyway, on to today's lesson. All Might apologized before moving on. Today we are doing battle training. Bakugo smiled viciously at the thought of battle training. A wall opened up to show their hero costumes. Izuku grabbed his costume and left the room, seeing as he was already beside the costumes. Minus the sword. And vest is pink. Once everyone was at the training site, All Might began explaining the lesson. If you are reading this, then you know the scenario. Izuku, Aizawa and Momo Yaoyorozu are Team A, the heroes. Katsuki, Bakugo and Tenya Ida are Team B, the villains. Villains have 5 minutes to prepare, heroes have 5 minutes to plan. Time starts now. All Might instructed through note cards. Bakugo is gonna come straight for me, so when he does you can run past him and head for the bomb. Izuku said to Momo with a serious look on his face. What about you? Momo questioned worriedly. I'll be fine. Just focus on Ida, he's smart and has probably already thought of a way to counter you. Izuku assessed quickly. But he also seems like the above and beyond type, so he'll probably be monologuing like a stereotypical villain, that'll give away his position. Alright, but if you get hurt, even All Might won't be able to hold me back. Momo said, not liking the plan. Heroes may enter. All Might instructs. Izuku and Momo enter the building and Izuku shifts his ears into cat ears. They make it to the 3rd floor before Izuku picks up the explosions caused by Bakugo. He then shifts his ears back to normal to prevent sensory overload due to increased noise. Here he comes, get ready. Izuku said and Momo nodded. As Bakugo comes around the corner, Izuku uses his capture scarf and grabs Bakugo before throwing him into the wall, knocking him out cold. I guess we don't split up then. Momo said, relieved. Momo walks over to Bakugo and wraps the capture tape around him, then heads back to Izuku. They then head up to the 5th floor where they hear Ida doing a monologue just like Izuku predicted. Momo decided it was her turn to play distraction. Izuku turned into a monarch butterfly and stuck to the shadows. Momo acted like she could no longer hold in her laugh by doubling over in laughter. Aha, there you are, hero. Ida said, forcing his voice a bit lower than normal. Ida then rushes at Momo, not noticing the orange butterfly heading towards the bomb. Heroes win. All Might declared joyously. What, how? Ida questioned, surprised. That would be me. Izuku said quietly and nervously. Ida whipped around so fast that he might have gotten whiplash from it. I must say that was a smart play, I thought that you'd still be busy with Bakugo. Ida commented. Izuku shyly nodded at him, then all 3 of them headed to get Bakugo and head to the observation room. The only problem was that he wasn't there. Maybe somebody already came and got him. Momo suggested with a shrug of her shoulders, but she didn't even sound like she herself believed it. Most probable. Ida said with a weird hand gesture. They then proceeded to the exit. Once they were outside and headed towards the others, Izuku heard something in the alley and spotted Bakugo with his arm raised and pointed at them. He immediately shifted into a rock golem and shielded the others by crouching over them with his back to the blast. Young Bakugo, don't. All Might shouted. The exercise is over, do not pull that pin. All Might ordered over the earpiece only to be ignored by Bakugo. If you pull that pin you will be expelled. All Might's shouts fell on deaf ears as Bakugo pulled the pin and set off the massive explosion. The blast knocked Izuku out of the transformation and the flames from the explosion left third-degree burns on his body. Seeing that Izuku survived the explosion, Bakugo went to pull the pin from the other gauntlet, making Izuku shift back into the golem form again despite the injuries and lack of stamina. But before Bakugo could pull the pin, All Might arrived and put Quirk canceling cuffs on him. Katsuki Bakugo, you are under arrest for attempted murder. All Might said. He was missing his usual smile and it was replaced by a frown of sadness. You can't arrest me, I'm gonna be the #1 hero. Bakugo shouted enraged. I'll get you for this, Demi. All Might ignored Bakugo's shouts as he dragged him to Principal Nizu's office. The class and Aizawa arrived to where Izuku, Momo, and Ida are, all worried for Izuku. Izuku, are you alright? Momo asked with tears streaming down her face. Answer me, Izuku. Izuku shifted back, letting the whole group see the burns all over his back. It hurts. Please, make it stop. Izuku begged with tears streaming down his face due to the pain. Izuku passed out from both the pain and exhaustion, making everybody even more worried for him. Aizawa picked him up shouting for everybody to get out of the way, which they did, before full-out sprinting to Recovery Girl's office. What happened? Recovery Girl questioned, shocked at the extent of the injury on Izuku. I should have gone with my gut and blacklisted that BSTRD from all hero schools. Aizawa said with clear rage in his voice. I'm gonna kill him for what he did. Well, lay him down so I can treat him, though he may be in here for a while. Recovery Girl said, already prepping. And you'll have to talk to Nizu about that second part. Aizawa laid Izuku on a bed and let Recovery Girl tend to him. He'll be fine, but there will be some scarring on his back. Recovery Girl said after assessing the damage before using her quirk. Thank you, now I'm gonna go and see Nizu. Aizawa said, already turning to leave. Aizawa left the office looking like he had somewhere to be. The students currently in the hallway parted like the Red Sea at the sight of the angry pro. When Aizawa arrived at Nizu's office, he just barged in, no knocking nor warning. Mitsuki and Masaru Bakugo, who were there talking with Nizu about their son, jumped at the sudden entrance of their friend's husband. Shota, what are you doing here? Masaru questioned, surprised. Eraserhead here is a faculty member and your son's homeroom teacher. Nizu said to the surprise of the two other parents. Wait, you're a pro hero? Mitsuki questioned, shocked with the information. An underground hero. Aizawa answered bluntly. Where is Katsuki and why were we called here? Masaru asked, getting back to the original question. He is currently in an on-site detainment facility for attempting to murder fellow students who bested him in the hero training after the exercise was already completed. Nizu answered plainly. Sure, he has an overwhelming amount of pride, but he wouldn't do something like that. Mitsuki said, not believing her ears. We have the security footage from the attack. The student who protected the other two is currently in the infirmary for an undetermined amount of time. He will also have permanent scarring on his back. The scarring will cover at the very least 70% of his back, and at the most his entire back. Nizu informed them and Mitsuki covered her mouth in shock while Masaru looked down in shame for his son's actions. Nizu played the entire tape of the match to Bakugo's attempt, with the audio so they could hear All Might telling him to stop and the pain he caused Izuku. This is not the first time Bakugo has attacked others. He has been attacking Izuku since preschool. Aizawa said to the shock of the Bakugos present in the room. This is my fault. If I had listened to my gut instead of Izuku, he wouldn't be in the infirmary with potentially permanent damage. What do you mean, Eraser? Nizu asked curiously. During middle school, when the attack started getting even worse, I was gonna blacklist Bakugo from every hero school worldwide, but Izuku begged me to give him a chance to change, but then the attack started happening from every male on campus. Teachers and other faculty often instigated and turned a blind eye to what was happening. It got bad enough that Izuku is now terrified of any male excluding myself, you Masaru, and Principal Nizu, though that may be more of the fact that he's not human. Aizawa explained, pain clear in his voice despite his best effort to hide it. So you're saying that even though Katsuki has been verbally and physically attacking him for years, Izuku still wanted to give him a chance? Mitsuki questioned in the hopes that she misunderstood what was said. Yes, and that is what landed him in the infirmary. Aizawa said, tears in his eyes that he is trying to blink away. We won't ask you to drop the charges, but we will, out of love for Katsuki, ask you to lower them. Masaru said, bowing his head. We already were planning on lowering them, cause if word got out that a student of UA tried to kill another, then parents might pull their kids. Nizu explained. As it is, we're already gonna lose a level of trust from the people over this incident. Shota, do you mind if we stop by the infirmary to see how Izuku is doing? Mitsuki asked with worry for Izuku in her voice. I don't mind, but I will ask that you not disturb him if he's still sleeping. You may see your son if you wish, he won't be transported to the prison until tomorrow. Aizawa said while lifting Masaru's head. After you leave, will you head to Inko and tell her what happened? I'm gonna stay here with him. Aizawa asked the two. She doesn't know that Katsuki has been attacking Izuku for years, as he didn't want her to worry more than she already did. Thank you. Mitsuki said. Of course, we'll help her however we can while Izuku recovers. The Bakugos got up and left, heading for the infirmary after they were given directions by Nizu. When they arrived and saw the condition Izuku was in, wrapped in bandages while laying on his stomach with nothing covering his back. They could see the blood bleeding through the bandages. Masaru clenched his fist in anger at what Katsuki did to the sweetest boy he ever knew. Recovery girl spotted them and went over. What is your relation to him? Recovery girl asked politely. We're his aunt and uncle. Mitsuki answered, sadness plain in her voice. Would you like the update or would you rather hear it from his parents? Recovery girl asked them. We're heading over to see his mother to let her know what has happened after we leave. Shota is gonna stay here with him. So if you could, please. Masaru asked respectfully. Well, it'll take about a week for him to leave the infirmary, but even after that he'll have to take it easy for another week while the scar firms up to prevent from reopening any part of the wound. Recovery girl explains. The scarring, no matter how many times I use my quirk on him, will cover 90% of his back. Thank you for trying your hardest. Masaru said, bowing his head in gratitude. The Bakugos left towards Nizu's office, having a conversation on the way, and knocked on the door. Come in. Nizu said, already knowing who it was thanks to a hidden camera by his door. It's us again. We were wondering if we could see Katsuki for a couple minutes. Mitsuki asked while bowing her head. Of course, right this way. Nizu said, getting off of his chair to lead them there. Nizu led them to the detainment center directly in the center of the campus. Here we are. You have 5 minutes. We will be listening to the conversation. Be safe, we don't want anything happening to the baby. Nizu said to the surprise of the two. Thank you. Mitsuki said, still a bit shocked. Nizu walked into the viewing room while they walked into the room Katsuki was being held in. Finally, you old hag, get me out of here. Katsuki demanded. No. Was Mitsuki's plain response to the shock of Katsuki. What did you say, you old hag? Katsuki shouted and raged. You don't get to tell me no, I'm gonna be the #1 hero. There is no #1 hero in prison, which is where you're going for your own actions. Masaru shouted to the surprise of both Mitsuki and Katsuki. Don't you yell at me, you cowardly piece of #####. Katsuki shouted even more and raged at not getting his own way. We discussed this on the way from the infirmary, we're disowning you. You are too much of a danger to have around the baby when she's born. Mitsuki said, looking down in shame and sadness. I'll kill you, you #######. Katsuki shouted. You hear me? At this point tears were streaming down both Mitsuki and Masaru's faces. They turned and headed for the door. Katsuki, no longer Bakugo, was screaming his head off at them. They ignored him as best they could and left. I know you may look at us as bad parents, but we've tried to tame his temper and ego. No matter what we tried, it didn't work. Mitsuki said, expecting insults from the faculty. That might have been his school's fault. Nizu said plainly. What do you mean? Masaru asked, shocked. Off the record, I might have hacked into Aldera Middle School's security camera footage, and the scene I'm about to show you is a multiple times a day, everyday occurrence. Nizu said, pulling up a video on the computer. Nizu pressed play on a scene from the recess and break area where the male teachers see Katsuki and the other boys from the school beating on Izuku till the women, both faculty and students, stepped in and stopped them. Katsuki then went over to the male teachers and popped off a couple explosions, to which they praised him and he acted like he was their god or something. With this footage being anonymously sent to the police station, there has been an investigation has been opened and they will be shut down and the male faculty arrested. Nizu explained to the shocked Bakugos. The Bakugos left the school and headed towards Inko's house where they told her what happened and what the damage was. Inko wasn't even slightly mad at them, but was furious at Katsuki. We have one question. Mitsuki said, still in shock at the fact that Inko isn't even the slightest bit mad at them. What is it? Do you need something? Inko asked, concerned. We want to know if you'd like to be the baby's godmother. Masaru asked with a gentle smile on his face. Of course. Inko cheered, full of joy. It's been a week since the incident and Izuku was finally cleared to return to class, though his back was still bothering him. When he opened the door, everybody shut up and rushed to their seats expecting it to be Aizawa. Izuku, are you sure you're healed up enough to return to class? Momo asked worriedly. I am fine, Momo. Izuku stuttered nervously. Izuku that took his seat hearing someone talking about him. So he's the kid that you all were worried about? Shinso asked for clarification, unsure if his assumption was correct. Yeah, he took the blast to protect Yamamoto and Ida. Hagakure said in a hushed whisper in the dead silent room. Izuku was distracted from listening in by Momo. Have you heard either the class news or the news about Bakugo? Momo asked. Izuku, what news? Izuku asked curiously as he hadn't heard anything about him since he's been in the infirmary. Well, you were elected class rep, but Aizawa, knowing you don't want that kind of pressure, passed it along to me, as I was voted vice rep, and you are vice rep, Momo relayed. And the case about Bakugo, he was found guilty but the transport never made it to the prison. Well, he can't evade the pros for forever. Izuku said, trying to convince himself more than Momo. Just then Aizawa waked in, gathering everyone's attention. Glad to see you're finally out of recovery girl's office. Your mom has been worried sick. Shinso, what do you mean his mom? Oh right, you haven't been introduced yet. Hitoshi Shinso, that is Izuku Aizawa, my step adopted son. Izuku, that is Shinso, he was brought up from General Ed, to replace Bakugo. Aizawa introduced. Now since Izuku has been cleared we can finally continue with hero training, so today we are heading to the USJ. A bunch of people started cheering. Aizawa, expecting this, was already cancelling Izuku's quirk as he didn't want another fish on land situation. I didn't think that everybody would get this excited over the unforeseen simulation joint. Izuku said, surprised and a bit startled from the sudden outburst from the class. The what now? Ashido asked, very confused. Don't spoil it, but he is right, we're not going to Universal Studios Japan, we are going to a different USJ. Aizawa said numbly. You can go either in your PE uniform or your hero costume. Now keep in mind that you are still not used to your costumes, or they hold bad memories for yourself or others, so they might hamper your, or others, performance. But isn't that the point, to use our costumes in training, to find out how to improve them so they won't hinder our abilities? Izuku said, confused. Stop spoiling the tests, problem child. Aizawa said, a bit upset but not letting any indication slip into his eyes or voice. Sorry Mr. Aizawa. Izuku said, quieting down. Now head to the bus after you change. If you're not there in 5 minutes I'm leaving without you. Aizawa ordered before leaving the room. On the bus now. Hey Aizawa. Azui said, getting everybody's attention on her, not that it really bothered her much. Which one? Izuku and Aizawa responded in sync. Sorry Mr. Aizawa, I meant Izuku. Azui clarified. What is it Azui? Izuku asked politely. Call me Tsu. Anyways, I tend to speak what's on my mind. What is the history between you and Bakugo? Azui asked bluntly. You don't have to tell them if you don't want to. Momo said, giving a stern look at the expectant glances from the other students. I'm gonna take a nap. You can tell them if you'd like. All of it if you'd like. Izuku said, avoiding talking about it and avoiding disappointing anybody. Izuku yawned right after he said his piece, then he shifted into a little black kitten and curled up on the seat next to Momo. I know you could have just used your imagination, but I wanted to put something cute for you. All the girls cooed and awed at how cute he was being before they turned to Momo expectantly. He said it was okay, so spill class rep, Bushido said, clearly very desperate for the drama. Fine, since it's only a matter of time till I require assistance in keeping others away from him. To sum it up, Bakugo has been attacking Izuku since they were 4, as time went on the girls of the class protected him. This only made things worse, but Izu has too big of a heart to mention this to anyone. Momo started and everybody leaned forward in anticipation. Bakugo wanted everybody to praise him like a god, so the girls siding with Izuku said Bakugo off big time. Bakugo gathered his friends, more like followers, and attacked him repeatedly. As the years went by, the other guys noticed how the girls surrounded Izuku, making them jealous. Even the female teachers protected him as best they could. This caused the male staff to be envious of Izuku as well, and as such they constantly did things to cause Bakugo to go after Izuku and turned a blind eye when he did. It got bad enough that the only male Izuku allows close to him is Mr. Aizawa, to my knowledge. Understood. We shall give him his space. He has already seen too much darkness in his life. Tokoyami said in a sultry tone of voice. Yeah, and his mom was unaware of what was going on with him until recently, when Bakugo was given the tools required to do some serious damage to him. In his exact words, it was the least he could do. After all, she took care of him at home, so he didn't want to worry her or cause her to lose friends. Momo said, causing confusion to spread through everybody except Aizawa. Before anyone asks, his mom and Bakugo's parents were friends since before they were born. One thing I should mention is that he gained a slight split in his personality. Manly, protecting his mom from heartbreak as best he could since age 4. Kirishima said, proud of Izuku. Though that was his intention, he may have done a bit of damage himself. Aizawa said, visibly upset at the pain this whole ordeal has caused his family. What do you mean? Azui asked, confused. I'll say this once and only because he's asleep. Aizawa said, clearly meaning that this wasn't meant for Izuku's ears. Since she found out, she feels like she's a failure as a mother, unable to notice that her child was in pain. What did you mean by a slight split in his personality, Yamamoto? Hagakure asked, a bit unnerved by what her mind was coming up with. When he is not in a fight, he's the sweet yet scared boy you've seen. Yet in a fight he can be merciless if he chooses and fears almost nothing. Momo explained sadly. Alright, we're here, everybody off the bus. Yayorozu, please wake Izuku. Aizawa ordered. As everybody got off the bus, and Uraraka started fangirling over 13, Momo turned to wake Izuku only to see him in kitten form with his eyes filled with tears. Oh no, you weren't supposed to hear what he said about your mom. Momo said, covering her mouth with her hand. Izuku shifted back into human form and looked numb but got up and walked off the bus. Momo followed, unsure of how to help. While 13 was giving her speech about Quirk's safety, the lights flickered, then the portal opened. Then true to Kirishima's fashion he pointed out the villains amassing by the fountain. Although all of this went unnoticed by Izuku, who is still in between states of mind. Stay back, those are real villains. 13 Protect the kids. Aizawa ordered, snapping into gear. Aizawa jumped down and started taking down villains left, right and center, but failed to notice Kurogiri. Hello, my name is Kurogiri and I'm here with the League of Villains. The information we stole said All Might would be here, yet I don't see him. Was there a change of plans we could not foresee? Kurogiri asked politely. Kirishima led the two-man charge of him and Aoyama attacking Kurogiri, thus giving Ida enough time to escape and get help. Unfortunately for the others, they were split up and sent to other parts of the USJ. Izuku snapped out of his state when he hit the cold water. A shark villain was headed straight towards him when Azui appeared out of nowhere, kicking the villain while grabbing Izuku and jumping to the ship. Thank you ASU-, Izuku started before being interrupted. Call me Tsu. Azui said sternly. I'm sorry, thank you Tsu. Izuku apologized before correcting his mistake. We're gonna die. Mineta screamed in fear. Why do you think they're not coming up after us? Azui asked, very confused by the lack of direct attack. They don't know our quirks. It's the only explanation. Izuku said, his personality swapping. What do you mean? Azui said, wanting clarification. Why are you here instead of the fire zone? Izuku more stated than asked. Oh, I get it. Azui said, nodding her head. I'm not gonna die of aversion. Mineta screamed. Mineta lunges towards Azui only to be met with a gorilla fist to the face, and then his face met the door to the cabin. I guess she was right about you fearing almost nothing in a fight. Azui said, finally noticing the change in Izuku. Yes and no, I just lock away as much fear as I can, I still have to deal with the fear as an after effect. Izuku explained. By the way, I have a plan to get us out of this mess. Your part is to take Mineta and jump as far as you can to get to the shore. I can make that jump. Azui said confidently. Good, now go. Izuku ordered. While Azui jumped to the shore, Izuku shifted into a lightning elemental and waited for Azui to be clear of the water before jumping in. Successfully frying all the villains at once, then flying to shore before shifting back. Izuku, glad to see you could make it. Azui said, dropping the unconscious Mineta to the ground only for Izuku to pick him up awkwardly. Izuku, carrying Mineta while walking beside Azui, was heading toward the stairs when they spotted Mr. Aizawa being overwhelmed by the sheer number of villains. Izuku, knowing he'd do more harm than good if he physically joined the fight, shifted into a necromancer and summoned about 20 skeletons to help his dad. He continued up the stairs to be met with the others, who gawked at him, unsure of who he was. Hey Tsu, who's the hottie? Mina asked suggestively. Cinnamon roll. Azui said plainly. You mean Izuku? Momo asked, needing a bit of clarification. You need something? Izuku asked, hearing his name. Yeah, why is Mineta unconscious? Momo asked, confused. Oh, that was me. By the way, do you think you could make some rope to tie him up till the cops and other pros get here? Izuku asked politely. Momo did as requested but looked very confused. He said something about dying aversion, whatever that is, and Tsu looked scared, then he lunged at her, so I punched him. Izuku explained, he himself a bit confused. Everybody made an oh face till they heard Aizawa scream in pain, causing all their heads to snap to his direction. They all saw the smashed skeletons and some kind of bird monster holding a very beat-up Aizawa. Izuku, wasting no time, sprinted back down the stairs towards Aizawa, summoning a couple more skeletons. While one of the skeletons distracted the bird monster, the other grabbed Aizawa and headed up the stairs quickly. Izuku took his time by letting Shigaraki throw his tantrum. When the skeleton finally made it to the top, Izuku shifted into his werewolf form and punched the bird monster straight in the face, but it didn't seem to do anything. You fool, my Nomu has shock absorption, so that's not gonna do anything. Shigaraki said, laughing at Izuku. Izuku wasted no time shifting into his golem form so that his defensive capabilities were maxed. It's a good thing too, because as soon as he did, the Momo unleashed a barrage of punches, creating a cloud of dust. The class along with Aizawa all screamed out for Izuku. Then a deep and gravelly voice spoke. "I'm alright, guys." Izuku called out to ease his father and classmates. "Not for long, you won't be." Shigaraki taunted. "Nomu, kill him." The Nomu then unleashed barrage after barrage of punches, causing cracks to appear on Izuku's arms. Then out of nowhere an explosion sounded from up top where the other students were distracted Izuku from maintaining his defensive stance for the next barrage, causing him to be launched into the air, knocked unconscious, forcing him to shift back. He flew through the sky, landing right in All Might's arms. "Izuku!" Everybody shouted. All Might was worried about what happened to Izuku till he heard something. "That's one student dead, now it's time for the others," Shigaraki said, celebrating. Izuku, even though he was knocked out, heard this, so while still out cold he got up and went in front of his classmates before shifting into his golem form again. "Would you look at that, he's persistent," Shigaraki mocked. "Wait a minute, look at him," Kurojirai said, causing Shigaraki to look more closely. "Is he asleep?" Shigaraki asked, very confused. "I don't believe so, I think he was knocked unconscious by that last barrage as he was distracted by All Might's entrance," Kurojirai explained, he himself a bit confused. All Might then leaped down and took out the newly conscious villains before stopping in front of the Nomu. "Take a good look, All Might. It was created to destroy you, yet somehow that child took 20 of its barrages full force without budging," Shigaraki said, holding a tiny amount of respect for the kid still standing and guarding his friends. "So it really is my fault he lost this battle, then I'll make it up to him by dedicating this victory to him," All Might said, a bit upset with himself. AM and the Nomu unleashed barrage after barrage upon each other, neither giving up any ground to the other. AM then decided he wasn't going to win with just 100%. "You may have heard these words before, but today you learn the true meaning," All Might said, still punching. "A hero will always find a way to break out of a tough spot, so today I go plus ULTRAA." With that, the Nomu was sent straight out of the USJ and into the forest surrounding it. "MSTR lied, you're not weakened, if anything you're stronger than before," Shigaraki said, throwing another tantrum. "Kurojirai, get us out of here." "Yes, sir," Kurojirai said robotically. Just after they left, the rest of the pros arrived and looked upon a strange scene. There at the start of the steps was the whole class hiding behind a statue. "Izu, we're safe, you can rest easy now," Momo said softly but loud enough for everybody to hear. After Momo told him they were safe, he shifted back while falling backwards, landing directly in Momo's arms. "Alright, go round up the remaining villains while the police handle the unconscious ones," Nizu ordered the heroes. Sir, all the villains are unconscious, also officers, please don't forget to take this one," Momo said while pointing at the tied-up Mineta. "Why would they need to take a student?" Nizu asked, confused. He lunged at Tsu with every intent to win her because he didn't want to die a virgin. Ashido explained, disgusted. "In that case, officers, please take him away with the other villains," Nizu said, also disgusted but upset as well, since this will be the second strike and within a couple weeks of the first one as well. Izuku just woke up in Recovery Girl's office, groaning, alerting her of his consciousness. "Easy there, boy, you had some nasty bruising on you, let me make sure you're all healed," Recovery Girl warned. Izuku complied with Recovery Girl as she did the checkup before she gave him the all clear. "By the way, be a dear and wake her up before you go, would you?" Recovery Girl said, pointing to the girl sitting in the chair beside the bed, head laying on it sleeping. "Of course, ma'am," Izuku says politely. "Thank you for treating me. Such manners," Recovery Girl comments. "You're very welcome. Momo, it's time to wake up," Izuku says, gently shaking her shoulder. Momo groaned and sat up, rubbing her eyes. What time is it Izu? Momo shouts. Ow, that was my ear, and I don't know, I just woke up. Izuku answered, rubbing his ear gently to ease the ringing. How long have I been out? Just a few hours. Momo said, settling herself down. Thank God. Wait, is everybody okay? Izuku asked, slightly panicked. Yeah, you and Mr. Aizawa were the only injuries, though the only injuries he suffered was a broken arm and some bruising. Momo answered. Thank God, the last thing I remember is getting distracted and failing. Izuku says sadly. Momo then slapped him upside the head quite hard. You didn't fail, you were willing to die to save us. Momo shouted angrily. Even unconscious you got back up and shifted back into that golem and stood in front of us. Izuku was starting to shake a bit. So don't you ever say you failed or you'll get worse than a slap to the head. Izuku was shaking in fear and crying because of both the slap and yelling. Yes ma'am, sorry ma'am. Izuku said instinctively. Oh Izu, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to get so aggressive. Momo said, coming back to her senses. I just meant that you didn't fail even after you got hurt. Come here. Momo then pulled Izuku into a hug to reassure him that she wasn't gonna hurt him. Thank you. Izuku said quietly. What for? Momo asked, very confused. Both. Izuku answered vaguely. Anytime, for the hug. Momo said, still hugging Izuku. I don't want to have to keep telling you that you didn't fail. Alright, you two lovebirds, get out of here. Recovery girl said, startling them and causing them to jump apart. Sorry ma'am, but we're just friends. Momo said, hoping Izuku didn't feel that way about her. Oh, my apologies. Recovery girl said politely. But still, you both got families to get back to, so get going. Yes ma'am. Momo said, already getting up and pulling Izuku with her. With that, Momo and Izuku both took their leave, heading their separate ways after exiting the school. When Izuku arrived home, it was much quieter than it should have been, which set him on alert. Mom, are you home? Izuku asked cautiously. Yes sweetie, I'm just in the living room watching TV. Are you okay? I saw what happened at the USJ. Inko said, sounding very out of character. If she'd seen it she would rush him unless something was stopping her. Izuku walked into the living room to talk with his mom. But as soon as he entered he was pinned to the ground by a big muscular blonde man, not Bakugo. You said you wouldn't hurt him if I complied. Inko said worriedly, looking between Shigaraki and Izuku. He isn't hurt, yet. Shigaraki says with an implied threat. Now, Izuku, was it? You're a real pain for me, so I'm gonna remove you from the game. I know it's cheating, but so is having two final bosses instead of one, so I thought I'd do the game a favor and remove the bug. But first let's have some fun. With that, Shigaraki started slowly decaying Inko while the man holding Izuku forced him to watch. Izuku kept struggling to get free to help her, to no avail. Something in Izuku snapped and he shifted into his werewolf form and sent the villains fleeing. But it was too late, her injuries were too severe, even Recovery Girl wouldn't be able to save her. Izuku shifted back to human form, running to his mother's side. I love you Izuku. I'm sorry I failed you as a mother. Inko said, already knowing she can't be saved. You didn't fail, you were the best mom I could ever ask for. Izuku said, causing Inko to smile. I'm sorry I failed you as a son, I should have been able to protect you, but I failed. Shigaraki and Kurojiri came back while he was distracted and Shigaraki drove a knife into Izuku's back. At that exact moment in time Aizawa got home after finishing paperwork with one arm. Izuku. Inko. Aizawa shouted desperately. Izuku passed out to blood loss and grief. Aizawa picked him up, spotting the dying Inko beside him. It's too late to save me, so please save our boy. Inko begged. I will, and I swear I'll protect him to the best of my ability. Aizawa said quietly. I know yo dash, Inko started, but death caught her before she could finish. Aizawa while crying ran Izuku back to Recovery Girl's office before heading to Nizu's office. I'm gonna kill him, Aizawa said upon entering without knocking. Didn't you forget something? Nizu said, angry at the lack of manners and respect. And who are you gonna kill exactly? No, I did not, and I'm gonna kill Shigaraki. Aizawa ranted angrily. What did he do? Nizu asked concerned. He killed Inko and possibly Izuku too. Aizawa said, anger clear in his voice. What do you mean possibly? Nizu asked a bit confused. I mean he might not survive the knife that was jammed into his back. Aizawa ranted, pacing back and forth. In that case you have my permission to kill Shigaraki at the earliest convenience without worrying about the consequences. Nizu said, feeling an urge for vengeance. Thank you, sorry for not knocking. Aizawa said, calming down, knowing he had permission to get revenge. No matter, this is much more important than manners. Nizu said wistfully. Aizawa then went into his office and away from any prying eyes before starting to bawl his eyes out for the woman he had loved for a decade. Izuku just woke up and was fully healed, so he looked at the clock before spotting a note on top of his uniform. To my nephew, you've been out for a day, but in that day we got everybody moved into dorms along with your stuff. Your room is the only one on the bottom floor and you missed the announcement for the sports festival. You do not have to participate if you do not feel up to it. The beginning speech was passed to Momo, as we know you won't be able to talk in front of everybody. We're all wishing you a speedy recovery, and please for everybody's sake stop getting injured. Signed, Uncle Nizu P.S. To get to the dorms follow the pathway to the left and it should be the first one you come across. This brought a smile to Izuku's face, yet he couldn't help but feel that something was different with his mind, but he shrugged that off to deal with it later. He instead opted to get dressed and head over to the new dorms, where he was met with a barrage of questions causing him to freeze in panic. Everybody back away and stop shouting at him. Yaoyorozu ordered loudly. Everybody did as she ordered as she went forward and calmed him down. How are you feeling? Yaoyorozu asked gently and worriedly. For the most part just really numb, like it hasn't really been processed. Izuku answered honestly, despite his want to assure everybody he was fine, since he knew lying to Yaoyorozu was not a good option. You know what I mean. Your room is right down that hall, go get some sleep. Yaoyorozu said, pointing him towards a door at the end of the hall on the first floor. Izuku shifted into a baby unicorn and trotted down to his room and entered through the doggy door at the bottom installed by Nizu for this exact reason. His room is half stable half room so that he may sleep in either form. The rest of the students were left stunned by what just occurred. 1 minute he's completely frozen and the next he's shifting into the most adorable thing they've ever seen before disappearing down the hallway. Momo, before you ask, he actually lives in that form, so if you see what looks like a horse roaming around, do not approach it, it's more than likely Izuku. Is everything about him adorable? Ashido asked while barely restraining herself from squealing. Yes, and if any of you attempt to ruin his innocence they will die. Yaoyorozu said with a dark aura about her. Momo alert. Hagakure joked. This got laughs out of most of the class. Well, I personally think Momo going into mama mode is incredibly secretary, Jiro unintentionally said out loud. This caused both girls to turn red and faint, with Izuku catching them while in werewolf form as he came out for something to eat in time to see them faint. He gently laid them on the couch before shifting back into himself. What happened? Izuku asked, very concerned. The look of pure concern on his face showed the others how much he truly cared for them. They just fainted, they'll wake up shortly. Ashido answered softly, in awe of how much worry was in his eyes. Izuku nodded and turned back to them and waited for them to wake up, not caring that everybody was staring at him. Momo was the first to awaken, so he checked on her to make sure she was alright before going back to wait for Jiro to wake up, which she did shortly after, receiving the same checkup as Momo before his stomach made itself known quite loudly. How long has it been since you've eaten? Yaoyorozu asked worriedly. Lunch before going home that day. Izuku answered nervously. So you're telling me you've missed 6 meals and you decided to wait for us to wake up rather than getting something to eat? Yaoyorozu said calmly. Momo may have spoke calmly, but it was like the sea, a calm surface but the riptide just below waiting for a victim to breach the surface. This was enough to set everybody but Jiro backpedaling immediately. Jiro was lost in lust. I was on my way to get something to eat when I saw you both faint. I couldn't let you guys get hurt just so I could get food. You're more important. Izuku explained, getting more nervous by the second. Momo chose not to respond but to instead grab Izuku's arm and drag him to the kitchen where she went about preparing a simple yet filling meal for him. When she was finished he divvied it up into 3 portions, confusing Momo. Momo, why are there 3 plates? Izuku simply pointed to the doorway where Jiro was attempting to hide and Momo barely spotted her thanks to her being pointed out. When she turned back she spotted the feline ears on his head. You might as well come out, Jiro, he already knows you're there and served you up a portion of the food as well. Yaoyorozu called out to her. Jiro slumped her shoulders and came out of her hiding spot. And I thought I was hidden so well. Jiro said, pouting. You were. If it wasn't for my ability to partially shift I wouldn't have known you were there without outing the fact I knew. Izuku said reassuringly. This praise raised Jiro's spirits and confidence to a new height, and when she went to thank him he was nowhere to be found. Where did he go, and how did he leave without me hearing? Jiro asked, her curiosity piqued. I don't know how he does that either. Yaoyorozu answered honestly. Yaoyorozu, I wanted to ask you something and please don't interrupt me. I've had a small crush on you since I first saw you and it grew exponentially that day at the USJ where you risked yourself to protect me. Jiro said quickly but slow enough to be understood. Jiro kept her head lowered in fear of rejection, but that was washed away when Momo gently grabbed her chin and lifted her head to look her in the eyes. Momo then leaned forward and kissed Jiro right on the lips. They were interrupted by cheers that startled them. They looked around and spotted their classmates all in the doorway, more than likely stuck locking the new couple in the kitchen unintentionally. Izuku, we need some help. Yaoyorozu called out. Izuku upon hearing this came out in baby unicorn form and spotted the issue. Rather than causing pain by trying to pull everybody out of the doorway, he shifted into werewolf form and grabbed the 2 sides of the doorway and ripped a chunk out of each side, making a wider doorway, thus freeing everybody, and left back to what he was doing before, which was holding his werewolf form for as long as he could while writing in his notebook to practice his strength control to prevent possible injuries if he were to have to grab hold of a civilian or villain while in this form. While doing this he didn't realize his door was opened and Momo came in and donned a look of confusion. What are you doing? Yaoyorozu asked curiously. Izuku spoke in a rough voice. I'm practicing strength control while also extending my stamina reserves. I'm gonna be heading to bed soon, good night. Izuku explained. Alright, good night Izuku. Yaoyorozu said gently. Momo then turned and left while Izuku was finishing up with his notebook page before he shifted back and went to bed, but not before crying when he knew nobody should come in, as that's how it would have been if Momo hadn't asked Jiro to keep an ear out for Izuku in case something was wrong. Momo, he's crying, should we go to him or let him cry alone? Jiro asked, unsure of what to do. Oh, it looks like mommy mode is contagious, now Jiro has it too. Ashido teased, but neither of the parties either heard or they didn't care. We go to him cause nobody should have to cry alone. Yaoyorozu said firmly. Jiro and Momo got up from where they were snuggling on one of the couches in the common room watching TV and headed to Izuku's room, where they pulled him into a hug where he continued to cry before he passed out in their arms, and then they too passed out. Time skip over the 2 weeks they had off to train for the sports festival. Both Momo and Jiro noticed how Aizawa wouldn't even look at Izuku and how that hurt Izuku just as much as losing Inko did. It was like he lost 2 parents instead of 1. So to help him they both adopted parental roles for him. Izuku trained by doing stamina training while holding his werewolf form. It successfully made him have enough stamina to be able to fight in that form for 5 hours without breaking a sweat. He also continued to practice with his scarf and martial arts, coming much closer to mastering them. He was completely ready for the sports festival. We see Class 1A in their waiting room waiting to be called out to the arena. First up we have the class that survived a villain attack. Class 1A everybody. Present Mike announced. They started walking out and were met with screaming, but Izuku expected it, so it didn't really scare him, it just raised his heart rate quite a bit. Now we have classes 1B through H. Can we get some applause everybody? Present Mike announced with noticeably less enthusiasm. The other classes arrived, but they got noticeably less applause, so Izuku risked gaining some attention on himself and also applauded with the audience. The others noticed this and all followed along. This received smiles from all but one person, who sneered and lifted his head but didn't say anything. Now can we have Yaoyorozu Momo come up on stage and give a speech please? Midnight announced. Momo walked up looking a bit surprised, but she reined it in and put on a smile and bowed to Midnight. I wasn't expecting this, so I'll just say what comes to mind. Me and my classmates wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Aizawa Izuku. He took on the villains alone after our teachers fell to a villain that even All Might had trouble with. Yaoyorozu started by explaining the events nobody is certain of. This shows that the villains are getting stronger, which means we also have to get stronger so that we can keep people safe, so today we go above and beyond to show the world how hard we are working to be ready to keep them safe. This was met with cheers from the audience. Today we go plus ultra. The audience and students along with the staff all cheered with her at the end. She hopped off the stage and regrouped with her class. The first round is the obstacle race. Midnight announced with cracking her WHP for emphasis. After Midnight announced the first round, everybody gathered at the starting line for the race. Computer, 3, 2, 1 go. Everybody took off trying to crowd through the narrow tunnel while Izuku shifted into his werewolf form and leaped clear over the arena to get on the other side before shifting into a cheetah and taking off at high speeds. There he goes folks. Aizawa Izuku is in the lead by a great amount. He has reached the first obstacle. Present Mike commentated. Izuku spotted the robots and was zipping in between them until he saw the 0-pointers from the entrance exam. He immediately shifted into the same giant cyclops he did the first time he saw one, but this time he simply shoved them out of his way, knowing that once he passed them they'd target the other participants. They did exactly as predicted and he shifted back into the cheetah. Would you look at that? What a power play. In one move he has more than doubled the ever-increasing gap between him and second place. He's reached the second obstacle, the chasm. Present Mike announced with excitement reverberating in every word. Izuku spotted the pit from when he was the giant cyclops, so he was prepared for it. He kept running and leaped. In mid-leap he shifted from cheetah form to unipeg, taking off into the sky. What are you teaching your students, Eraserhead? Present Mike shouted in excitement. This one I only taught martial arts and how to use my capture scarf. This is all them, they've faced real villains, something most third years can't even say. Aizawa said emotionlessly. Did you hear that folks? Eraser here is a terrible teacher in all but combat. Ow, I'm sorry. Present Mike screamed in fear. All the audience could hear after that were strangled screams and pleas from the loud announcer. They saw the unipeg soar out of the tunnel and up to the announcer's box, where he pulled the feral Aizawa off of Present Mike and stuffed him into his sleeping bag, and using Aizawa's own scarf to tie the bag shut before leaving and shifting back into a unipeg and flying back down to the ground just in time for second place to arrive. And in second place we have Shoto Todoroki. Thank you Izuku for saving my life. Present Mike said, not missing a beat after getting back to the mic. Izuku, now in baby unicorn, nodded his head before heading to the grassy area around the edge of the arena and laying down and taking a nap to restore his stamina from the multitude of transformations he did. Izuku was gently awoken by Momo, letting him know that round 2 was about to begin. I'm gonna be lazy and skip the explanation. Izuku, will you team with us? Yaoyorozu asked, approaching him. Of course. Izuku answered without hesitation. Momo, Jiro, and Sue had spotted the quiet freakout Izuku was having after being informed of the 10 million points and the target on his back. They decided to spare him the freakout by approaching him. Momo, if you can create undercarriage that can be attached to me while I'm in unipeg form, I can fly us around the entire round while Jiro can defend the carriage from attacks and Tsu can snag others' headbands when we're over top of them. Izuku explained. That was fast, let's do this. Jiro said, getting pumped up. They fist bumped before setting to work. In the end it was like a hot air balloon basket but tied to a unipeg. They hopped in while Izuku prepared to take off. Computer, 3 2 1 go. And like that, Team Yaoyorozu was airborne. The first team they stole the headband from was Team Monoma, who spent the remainder of the round chasing the flying group with nobody in his team with a ranged quirk effectively eliminating them. Then came Team Ibra, who was too in awe of the unipeg to do anything to defend themselves. They went on and stole a different team's headband, allowing them into the final round even if they lost the 10 million point headband. In the end they had more than enough points to move on to the final round. And, time's up. You have an hour break for the contestants to regain some energy before the battle-style tournament. Present Mike announced before quickly vacating the announcer's box. With that, Izuku set the basket down gently before landing beside it and flopping while shifting back into his regular form, exhausted. Izuku. Yaoyorozu and Jiro screamed in worry. You guys did really good, but I need to go eat something and take a nap. Izuku said, too tired to really say more than that. Izuku said that while getting to his feet sluggishly and wobbly. He headed off down to the cafeteria where he was met with his Aunt Mitsuki and Uncle Masaru waiting for him. They saw his sluggish movements and were about to get up to help him until he smiled and waved them off. He went and got some food and went and sat with them. Hi Auntie Mitsuki, Uncle Masaru, and little one. Izuku greeted cheerily despite how tired he is. Hi Izuku, as you can see little Katsumi's here to see you as well. Mitsuki said happily. You're doing quite well so far, we're proud of you and we're sure Inko is as well. Masaru said encouragingly. She may be proud but I'm ashamed of myself. Izuku responded self-deprecatingly. This is just making it so much worse, I have all this power yet I didn't save her, I froze, and because of that she's dead. As Izuku was talking, tears started forming in his eyes, showing how much pain he is still in. Mitsuki brought him into a hug, and while in the hug Katsumi reached out and grabbed his pinky, making him smile through the tears. Hello Katsumi, when you grow up you're gonna be a great hero with an even greater heart. Izuku said gently, and Katsumi started to laugh in excitement, not truly knowing what was said but happy because she helped Izuku at least slightly. It's time for the final event and Izuku is up first. His opponent is Hitoshi Shinso. He's walking to the arena at the same time as the boy with purple hair that is his newest classmate. Ready, fight. Midnight announced. You have an amazing quirk. Shinso said tauntingly. You'll easily make it in the hero society. The quirk doesn't make the hero, the heart makes the hero. Izuku said not just to him but everybody, so his quirk wouldn't work on me just yet at least. Do you truly believe that? Shinso asked in shock. Izuku went to answer thinking he was too in shock to use his quirk. Shinso used his quirk on Izuku, effectively putting him to sleep and awakening someone else. You've screwed up now. The mystery person said threateningly. Why aren't you under my control? Shinso questioned himself, shocked once again. You shouldn't be awoken me. The mystery person in Izuku's body taunted. By the way, the name's Zook, I'm his split personality caused by seeing his mother tortured to death while he was pinned down. Zook explained emotionlessly. Now you have a choice, you can use your quirk on me and awaken Izuku and fight him, or you can fight me. Your only other option is to forfeit, seeing as you've never trained your body a day in your life. I'll fight because a hero never gives up no matter the odds. Shinso responded determinedly. Good choice, now let's fight. Zook said excitedly. Shinso charged in fast, hoping to get the jump on Zook, though that might not be possible. Zook grabbed his wrist and spun him, making him land in the middle of the arena. Lesson 1, never charge your opponent blindly and without caution. Zook said out of the blue, confusing Shinso. Lesson 2, Never lower your guard while your enemy is conscious. Shinso was rewarded with a kick to his ribs for doing so. Lesson 3, Pick your battles wisely, you never know what battle might be your last. With that, Zook slipped through Shinso's guard and gave a swift chop to the neck, knocking him out. And the winner is Izuku. Present Mike screamed in excitement. Izuku, unsure of anything that happened, walked out in a daze. When he arrived at the stands, everybody noticed that he was still in a daze. Izuku, are you okay? Yaoyorozu asked, concerned. Yes, no, I don't know, I don't remember the match, it's like I was asleep. Izuku answered honestly. We'll get that checked out after the sports festival is over. As for the match, all you did was give him a lesson on how to fight before knocking him out. Yaoyorozu explained to a grateful Izuku. Essentially, you just showed the world you don't need a quirk to be a hero by beating Shinso without using your quirk. Jiro boiled it down while adding another layer to it. That's good, right? Izuku asked, unsure. I think so. Yaoyorozu answered thoughtfully. I'm gonna take a nap, good night. Izuku said, yawning and sitting in his seat. Izuku fell asleep, so Momo pulled his head over onto her lap while Jiro put his legs across her lap. About 20 minutes later, it was time for Momo and Jiro's match, girlfriend against girlfriend. In the end, Momo came out on top and it was time for Izuku's match against Todoroki. Ready, fight. Midnight announced. Todoroki started the match trying to end it like he did with Zero, but luck was not in his favor. Izuku shifted into an ice elemental and phased right through the ice while controlling it so it didn't even get close to the audience. Izuku then spoke in a voice that reminisced with the wind rolling over hills of snow. That's not gonna work on me. Izuku warned. Todoroki ignored Izuku and kept trying, but was getting slower and slower, and you could see the frostbite creeping over his skin. Eventually he couldn't move any longer. The audience was in awe of Izuku. He protected them from both the ice and the cold without sustaining any damage himself. The match is over, Izuku wins, somebody hurry get him to recovery girl. Midnight shouted worriedly. No need, besides, despite her incredible ability she wouldn't be able to help him. Izuku said, confusing and scaring everyone at the prospect of a kid dying in the sports festival. Izuku the shifted forms again, but this time into a flaming bird known as a phoenix. Izuku the flew down to Todoroki and shed a single tear onto him, healing him of his frostbite and his burned scar. Rei, who was watching from her room in the hospital, watched the scar she put on her baby vanish with tears of joy. The audience was in shock at just how powerful this boy is. The medical bots came and collected Todoroki before Izuku left for the stadium, even if only for a brief intermission before his match against Momo. Ready, fight. Midnight announced. I won't fight you, Momo, I couldn't bear it if I ever brought you pain. Izuku said, tearing up at just the thought of that happening. And if you actually did fight me, I wouldn't stand a chance, I forfeit. Yaoyorozu said before Izuku could forfeit. Yaoyorozu Momo has forfeited the match. Izuku Aizawa is the winner of this year's festival, and he did so indisputably. Midnight shouted excitedly. He was first place in all events. Folks, we have ourselves somebody who has done something not even All Might could do, and he did it as a first year. The audience cheered so loudly that Bakugo heard it from where he was hiding from the cops that are looking for him. Shigaraki was furious seeing that the one kid he actually really wanted dead survived and seemed to be even stronger than before. We see Izuku in Nizu's office along with All Might, Eraserhead, and Shinso. We reviewed the footage of your match with Shinso here and found something strange. It appears that you have a split personality and we would like to talk to him. Nizu said seriously. Izuku then nodded his head after having an internal conversation with Zook. Hello again, Shinso, nice to meet you, Nizu and All Might. My name is Zook, and as I've explained to Shinso, I'm a split personality from Izuku due to all the trauma he's received throughout his life. Zook introduced himself. You can relax your quirk, Aizawa, I'm not like a villain personality. I'm totally different, though I do have to say I did act slightly like a villain during our match, Shinso, and for that I apologize, but I needed a meeting with Nizu. It's alright, thank you for the short lesson on fighting. Shinso said, slightly uncomfortable. No problem. Anyway, as I've said, I was created when Izuku watched our mother be murdered. I'm him, but with less fear and a lot more confidence. Zook explained. I'll only come out as a last resort, or when he feels like going to sleep during class. Zook joked and caused All Might to burst out laughing. Anyway, don't we have a new student to introduce into class before we talk about hero names and internships? You do, though I would like for you to stay for about a minute after everyone else leaves. Nizu said, and Zook nodded. After Aizawa and Shinso left, All Might went poof into Small Might and went into his explanation. I would also like to apologize for scaring you, young Aizawa, before battle training. All Might said as he rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. It's fine, I could heal your injury if you'd like me to. Izuku offered. Are you certain? Everyone with a medical-based quirk has tried and nothing has worked. Nizu asked, hopeful yet doubtful at the same time. I'm certain, after all, I healed Todoroki. He doesn't even have his scar that he got 11 years ago. Izuku said proudly. Thank you, Zook. All Might said with joy and hope in his voice. Not that there's a difference, but it's Izuku, not Zook. Izuku said with a nervous yet genuine smile. Izuku then shifted back into the phoenix again while All Might laid down and lifted his shirt just high enough to see the scar. Izuku landed beside All Might and leaned over his scar before shedding a single tear. Before their eyes, All Might's scar disappeared and he went into his buff form automatically without activating OFA. He was back at his peak for his age, so while not in his prime, he's a lot stronger than he was before. The next thing anybody heard was the loud rumble of All Might's stomach. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get to class. Izuku said before getting back up. Wait, young Aizawa, I would like for you to be my successor. All Might said out of the blue. If you choose to do so, eat this hair, because you need to consume some of my DNA for the transfer to work. Izuku nodded his head and accepted the hair before heading off to class. When he arrived, he sat in his seat just before Aizawa woke up. Today we have a few things to discuss. First off, we have a transfer student from 1B joining our class from now on, Itsuka Kendo. Aizawa said plainly. Second is that something new has happened to Aizawa. This got worried shouts from everybody while Jiro and Momo went straight to Izuku to make sure he was okay. Due to certain events, he has developed a split personality, and we've already spoken with the split, and in their own words they are just like Aizawa, just without the fear, and has a lot more confidence. Aizawa said before brushing that aside. Next up is hero names, and since I'm terrible with those, I've brought in help. That would be me. I have final approval for your hero names, so make them good or there'll be hell to pay. Midnight threatened. As class went on and hero names were approved or people were sent back to the drawing board. When it was his turn, you could see his nerves before he went into battle mode, as he calls it. I'm the shape-shifting hero, Myth. Izuku announced proudly but a touch nervous. That got a round of applause and an approval, and he went back to his seat. I've chosen the name Mediator for my hero name, and I'll let the people decide my title. Shinso said before heading back to his seat. Risky gamble, I like it. Midnight said breathily. Now, if everyone would look at the board, these are the offers you've received from pro heroes all around the country. Aizawa explained. Pick from your stack, and if you didn't get any offers, take a look at this list of 40 and pick one. Izuku rummaged through his list before he found a hero that called to him, Copy Nin, otherwise known as Kakashi Hatake. Izuku knows that the hero is male, but he also knows that to be an effective hero he needs to overcome his fears. He needs more stealth and martial arts training so that in a worst-case scenario he isn't useless in any situation. He hands in his form and doesn't even receive a grunt of acknowledgement like Aizawa did for the other students. This was noticed by Midnight, who also noticed the hurt look on Izuku's face before he hid it behind a fake smile. This fake smile was perceived by Midnight, Momo, and Jiro, but they couldn't do anything about it right now. The rest of the students all handed in their forms, all getting a noise of acknowledgement from Aizawa. Izuku is learning to act accordingly. if Aizawa isn't going to acknowledge his presence then he was going to only look to him as a teacher and not a father anymore, even though it hurt to do so. The students then left for the dorms with the 2 transfers in tow. As soon as they got there Izuku shifted into the baby unicorn like he usually does and cantered to his room. This garnered reactions from the transfers. Shinso was slightly shocked while Kendo was in awe of how adorable it was. Idas tried to stop that but gave up when he realized that is how Aizawa lives. Kaminari explained for them. He's rarely in human form in the dorms. He's talking to himself, which means he's in human form. Jiro said while eavesdropping. Meaning that he's contemplating something. What's he saying? Momo asked a bit worried. Give me a second. Jiro answered. Jiro then hooked her ear jack into a speaker and the other into the wall broadcasting what Izuku was saying to the others. What did I do that caused him to no longer care? Is it because I'm too weak? Izuku questioned himself. That's probably it, I'm just a weak failure like Bakugo always said. Bakugo, isn't that the dude that was taken out of UA with cuffs on for attacking a student, and it was later found out that he had constantly been attacking someone since preschool? Shinso questioned slightly alarmed. Yeah, meet his victim, you name it he did it trying to break Izuku. Yaoyorozu answered. Izuku, are you two dating or something? Shinso asked surprised. No, we've known each other since we were kids when he saved me from Bakugo before I had to move away. Yaoyorozu explained. He then later on, about 10 months before the entrance exam when I moved back, saved me from the Sludge villain incident, and I'm dating Kyoka. While Momo was busy explaining a few things Jiro went ahead to Izuku's room and knocked on the door. He opened it and let her in. Is that common? Izuku asked curiously. What? Jiro asked confused. Me being the topic of discussion. Izuku clarified. Yes and no, for instance after the USJ, yes, after battle training, yes, in other words only after you do something people want to talk about. Jiro said which pretty much meant yes all around. In this case it was us explaining a few things about you. Oh, did you want something? Izuku asked as politely as he could. Yeah, you are not weak or a failure and we're all living proof of that. Jiro answered. We wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for you and neither would Mr. Aizawa or 13 for that matter. Thank you, you might want to get out there and save your girlfriend from being grilled by the others about me. Izuku said surprising her. How did you dash? Izuku cut her off by pointing to his head where there was a pair of feline ears. Alright then, I'm gonna go save her. Jiro made an awkward exit before getting to her girlfriend. Thank you Jiro. Momo said after Jiro got the crowd to leave her alone. I'd do anything for you, you should know that by now. Jiro said hugging her. Momo and Jiro headed to the couch where they proceeded to snuggle and watch TV with the rest of their classmates. Izuku decided to accept OFA with the reasoning that if he ever found someone better for it he'd pass it along. The previous users of OFA agreed that even if he passed the quirk along they'd leave a small piece with him. They were also having a grand old time with Zook.